Texas State joining the Pac-12. That is the next major domino. That means the ACC's death is a step closer. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We will cross over with TJ Pittenger of College Football Addiction and talk Texas State shaking up college football, the Big 12, the ACC, even the SEC and Big 10 to a bit by joining the Pac-12 and creating a new Power 5. Also, the ACC is sinking. It's the worst of the Power 4 right now. Why? And can it be fixed? And is that good for the Big 12? Then, Utah fans, they're freaking out. Are they crashing out over BYU landing a 5-star quarterback? And why is that good for the Big 12 if they are crashing out? Why are Utah fans so valuable to this league? We will get there later. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. TJ, why are we distracting them? Let's go.
Are we about to have a Power 5 again? Probably not. But let's jump into Texas State and the Pac-12.
Realignment is back, TJ. The one thing that no one could get enough of last offseason is here once again, and in the form of something that actually affects the Big 12 mightily and the ACC as well. If you're an SEC fan or a Big 10 fan, I think you can already deduce that because of the area the ACC is going into in college football and college athletics, you're likely to have a Clemson or Florida State in your hands pretty soon, possibly a Virginia or a North Carolina. We've all kind of come to the conclusion the ACC is going to lose a couple of schools by 2030. But now with this, not only are we inching toward a Power 5 being restored, Texas State going to the Pac-12, and Pete Thamel is the one saying that Texas State officials have informed the Sun Belts there's no collusion or tampering that they have been expecting an offer from the Pac-12 and that those conversations will intensify. And from there, as a Power 5 is restored, and you're right, it's not exactly a Power 5 yet, but with that inkling of a restoration, it sends shockwaves through the Big 12. It sends shockwaves through the ACC. It sends shockwaves through all of college athletics. The reason being is now, when the ACC inevitably loses two of its top schools in the next 4 years, where they will look will be the next best conference. Is that the AAC? Is that UAB or Memphis? Is it Temple? Is it somebody in the Sun Belt? Or is it now the Pac-12 being rebuilt with a UNLV, with a Boise State, with a Texas State that all look very viable, and even a Sacramento State that I think a lot of people are overlooking? And if you're the Big 12 and you say, whoa, wait a second, that's our territory. We didn't want North Texas. We didn't even want SMU. But if Texas State is viable enough, if we can make a university in San Marcos make sense financially for us, we will pull the trigger. What Washington State and Oregon State are doing, and really this is what it boils down to, what those two schools are doing is not rebuilding the Pac-12. They're rebuilding a launching pad, a launching board for those universities to find their way into the ACC or the Big 12 when the next wave of realignment comes. They want to put themselves in such a position that they can maneuver their way back into Power 5 revenue, back into $30+ million a year in TV contract money. That's what this is. The addition of Texas State bolsters the Pac-12, and from there, the two biggest schools in that rejuvenated conference can make themselves viable to the ACC or the Big 12. Do I think Texas State's a Big 12 school? No. Is it possible? Sure, anything is. Do I think that UNLV is an ACC school? No. Is it possible? Again, sure. But I do believe that Oregon State, Washington State, the resume they come into this entire thing with will only be helped by the addition of Texas State and the fact that the Pac-12 now lives. They needed another football member. They've got another football member. What you're seeing is another massive domino falling that will affect the ACC and the Big 12. We're going to overlook this and say, oh, great, Texas State to the Pac-12, fun for them, that's awesome. But what this is actually doing is rebuilding a structure in that conference that will allow its top members to have leeway or leverage to get into the Big 12 or the ACC, which I think is the goal, the ultimate goal of Washington State and Oregon State.
So on Texas State for just a moment, going to the Pac-12, as somebody who's there and very familiar with or not there, but like covering the Big 12, somebody who has a lot of teams there in Texas and understands that, Does Texas, where do they fall in this pecking order of new teams to this new look Pac-12? I'll ask it. Is there anything close to Texas money there with Texas State?
There's something, and it's the recruiting hotbed is where you have to start. San Marcos is a great place to go to college. I mean, look, we not saying Waco is anything special, but when I was at Baylor, we would leave Waco on the weekends, go to San Marcos, and float the river. It's a really easy sell for recruits, and G.J. Kinney is doing something there that is phenomenal. You know, T.J. Finley was their quarterback at Texas State for a couple of years, or for a year, I should say, and was a star. They actually beat Baylor at a massive upset in Waco when Kinney first got there because they took 50 transfers. They did the Colorado method, and it worked immediately. It was their first year to ever go to a bowl game. So under the leadership of Kinney, and with further investment in college athletics at Texas State specifically, they look sexy for a conference. They've got the location. They have the state of Texas. They have the recruiting right now. They have the transfer portal savvy. And when they get TV money, you can see them start to unlock new things. This reminds me of what BYU did when they came to the Big 12. They were just waiting on $30 million a year in revenue. And by the way, they haven't even gotten that yet. They're still $12 million short until this year because of their first couple of seasons being a lesser revenue share to get them in the door. For Texas State, once they've got more formidable money, once they've got CW money even, and then you're like, oh, CW money. But yeah, it's more than what they had. Once those millions of dollars start to roll in from the TV contracts, they can invest more post-house settlement into their student athletes and revenue sharing. And as they become more serious about that, because they have the strong foundation of a great recruiting hotbed, the NIL game, the transfer portal game, Texas State is dangerous. And they remind me a lot of a UNLV or of a Sacramento State who might be overlooked right now. But in 10 years, we could look back and go, shoot, would they have been a better addition than Cincinnati? Would they have been a better addition than Cal? This is the kind of university that gives me that vibe.
Does this change or alter? I guess I'm asking you to put on your Nostradamus hat, right? So I don't know if you know this to any degree of certainty, but in your mind, does this start to expedite other changes, the big changes that we expect? Is this ripple that causes a crack that we see other effects in 5 years? Or do you think things maybe even get escalated more or expedited more than that 2030 deadline?
Yeah, let me pull the curtain back a bit for the fans at home. This is where TJ and I meet weekly and say, okay, what are the biggest things in college football? And this is one that takes some convincing. Like, TJ, but bear with me here for a second. I know it's weird. Texas State to the Pac-12. It's kind of funky. And is that a major news topic? Yes. Because it is that domino, because it matters that much for where we are going in college football as something that expedites the process of even Clemson or Florida State leaving the ACC. What you all have to understand is that we just created a new conference. The Pac-12 didn't exist a week ago. The second that the Texas State actually joins that league, we have reinvented a conference and are a step closer to having another powerful league in college football. They have Boise State, Washington State, Oregon State, UNLV. They've got powerful football there. You've got to turn your eyes to that to understand where we are heading in the next couple of years and how that process certainly can be expedited by another very strong league that can, and we'll talk about this, that can compete with the ACC. That's another big piece of this here. The ACC is as weak as it's been in the last few decades, and because of that, the stronger the Pac-12 gets, the stronger the Big 12 gets, the worse off the ACC is, and that's a big piece of this.
Yeah, I wonder, whether it's 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, when the ACC's powers leave, right? And there's a best case, there's a middle of the road case, and there's a worst case for the ACC. Best case, maybe just 2 teams leave. I think that is probably outside the realm of possibilities, but we'll paint an absolute best case scenario and say that North Carolina and other teams stay. I think that's probably crazy to think. But there is a worst case scenario where Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami all leave.
Yeah.
Maybe Louisville, Virginia Tech get picked off. Maybe they go to the Big 12. Maybe Pitt goes to the Big 12. And you're left with the Wake Forests of the world. Georgia Tech goes somewhere, whether it's Power 2 or the Big 12, wherever. And you're left with the Syracuses and the Boston Colleges and the, Duke, if they don't go somewhere for hoops. You're left with non-football powers, and you are in a Cals and Stanfords if they don't get picked up. And then you're looking at the ACC and thinking, are they that much better than the Boise States and the Oregon States and the Washington States? And what does Texas State look like after 5-10 years of this? And so I do think it does create kind of what ends up happening with the ACC. I mean, shoot, I don't think the Big 12 is, and I don't know if you have a take here, I don't know if the Big 12 is immune to teams leaving. I certainly think if Kansas got a call, which I'm not necessarily saying they will, I think they'd go. If Oklahoma State or Utah, I think if teams got a call, they would explore it and they would potentially go. But I do think that it the Big 12 doesn't have two anchors that are likely leaving, or maybe 3 or 4 anchors that are likely leaving. And so it does kind of create this weird dynamic where if this is a crack, it feels like another crack, and not if it is. It feels like another crack in what might be really bad news for the ACC.
I think so, and that is where I will continue to talk on my show, is how poor the ACC feels right now, how poorly a spot they've been put in by their commissioner and by their leadership here recently. And that is, it's weird to say that Texas State going to the Pac-12 is a massive issue for the ACC, but I think that's exactly what it is. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is exactly where I go. It's exactly where I go when I need tickets. Last minute, you decide, you know what? I'm going to that MLB game. Last minute, you say, I'm going to that G League game, or I'm going to the basketball tournament, or the TBT. That's what it is. It is best. It's the best practice to go to Game Time. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch or tip-off, and there are incredible last-minute deals. It's the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB as well, making it easy to browse the app for exciting upcoming MLB games. Game Time has last-minute tickets, and you can save 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, that is guaranteed.
So on the ACC specifically, I sent you an article and want to talk about this. Is the ACC the most boring, least exciting league in the Power Four?
Not when Clemson and Florida State are good, but sorry, TJ, Florida State wasn't good. They were 2-10.
I sent the article, so I won't. You don't have to say sorry. I'm the one that invited this.
My bad. But that's where these sit, and that's where the ACC sits, and that's where these two schools sit. Are if you're not good, if your two big dogs aren't good, what do you have to hang your hat on? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to play the card of this highfalutin, a crazy person who thinks the Big 12 is the best conference in all of college athletics. We were just there. We were just in a spot where Texas and Oklahoma did not want to be in our league. And when that was the case, and when they left, you looked at the Big 12 and you said, this is pretty boring because, man, Texas isn't very good. And the second that Texas got good, Oklahoma's not very good. And there's not much to hang your hat on. They're both leaving. And now what? Luckily for this conference, the teams you backfilled with, like Utah or BYU or Deion Sanders in Colorado, have given you a ton of exposure. For the ACC, the teams you backfilled with, Cal, Stanford, and an SMU team that made the college football playoff, and collectively America looked around and said, we don't care. It didn't matter. You're going to say, who would name the schools that were in the very first college football playoff that was expanded to 12 teams? And most Americans, most college football fans will probably leave SMU off that list. They'll forget. This is forgettable. And it was so funky and silly and stupid that the SMU team that was your best squad all year long actually lost to Clemson, who seemed to be so down and had just lost to South Carolina. And now that Clemson team sneaks its way into the college football playoff as well, and they don't even get a bye. Boise State does instead. All of that put together is just a bad look for the ACC. And if you're going to put 1 through 4, these power conferences ranked in football, you're going to put the ACC at 4. If you ask Massey ratings over the last 6 years, 4 of those years, the Big 12 has been the second best analytical conference in football, right behind the SEC. And a big piece of that is their parity and their maximum competition. Last year, basketball, football, both, we just didn't see ranked matchups in the ACC. We didn't ever get the opportunity to go, wow, I can't wait to watch number 15 play number 17, or number 15 play number 8, or number 8 play number 9. There was none of that in the conference because you have a surplus of Virginias. You have a surplus of Mississippi States, a surplus of Cincinnati's. Every conference has that school. The ACC just has a lot of them. Even the middle of the pack, NC State or Wake Forest or Boston College, who wasn't bad. No one is talking about those schools. No one will watch those schools. And do I think that's an overall problem in college football and that people should give more exposure to the middleman? Of course. However, in the ACC, they can't find a way to market it. And outside of 3 teams, genuinely, last year, outside of Clemson, 2? Clemson and Miami? As SMU's kind of there, but again, no one was watching. Like, if a tree falls in the woods, if SMU goes to the college football playoff and no one's watching, did it really happen? And I hate that for SMU fans, but again, I just think the ACC is so overlooked right now.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of it does have to do with Florida State. I can say that. But it's not just FSU. You think about, how the ACC went last year. And I can't remember if I've talked with you about it specifically, so I don't mean to go back to the same point again. But if FSU takes care of their business, we've got a ranked matchup, probably an undefeated matchup of 2 teams when Florida State and Miami play each other. And that'd have been great for the ACC, right? But Florida State didn't take care of their business and obviously did way worse than just not taking care of their business. You think about Miami being a top 6 team and losing 2 of their last 3 games. And that being awful for the ACC. Now, as a Florida State guy, I love that, sure. But objectively for the ACC, terrible. NC State, is Doran finally on the hot seat? Like, I think about them. They're a team. Nobody wants to go to Raleigh and play. Like, ask Florida State fans one place you don't want to have to go play in league, and they'll tell you we don't want to go to Raleigh, North Carolina. It's not Clemson. It's not the Swamp. It's not down to Miami. It's not to Notre Dame, right, for those games. It is Raleigh, North Carolina. But they can't take care of what they got going on. UNC recruits at a top 25 level over and over. And I know there's excitement around UNC with Belichick right now. And that certainly will help some of the intrigue or appeal with them for sure. But I think that if the ACC teams that are supposed to would take care of business, again, Clemson blowing a lead late to South Carolina and taking all the wind out of their sails late in the season and having to backdoor their way into a playoff spot by beating SMU. I think that all of those things contributed to it too. That said, even if all of those things would have happened, right, and your Florida State and your Miami and Clemson all took care of business, NC State was a solid 8-4, 9-3 type team. Either your Virginia or your Virginia Tech step up and kind of do what they need to do, where one of them is competitive and playing well. Even if all of that was the case, the bottom of the league is still just so terrible. Yeah, right. And I hate to dunk on these teams. I'm not trying to be a jerk.
Can I kind of pause you and adjust just a tad bit? It's not just the bottom of the league. It's the back half.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
The bottom of the Big 12 is terrible. The bottom of the SEC is terrible. The Big 10. It's just the entire half of the ACC looks kind of terrible right now.
Yep. You think about. There are, like you just said, there are those teams for the Big 12 too. Like I don't think I watched any Cincinnati games last year. Not to dunk on them. I watched a couple of UCF games because they're kind of close to me. But there are some teams in the Big 12 that like don't have great appeal, and we can, sure. Outside of Vandy's magical 7-6 year, I didn't watch any Vandy games for the last few years either, right? Like that. Yeah, how many times you tuned in and watching Rutgers play, or a lot of these teams. So that the ACC is not exclusive in that. But when you think about like BC, Wake, Syracuse actually did have a good year there. How many people watched? I don't know. Pitt, okay. Virginia's an absolute dumpster fire. Virginia Tech's a dumpster fire. Georgia Tech, they had some fun games. A lot of people watched because they played Florida State and Georgia on standalone days where nobody else was playing. Duke football, UNC, NC State being kind of a mess. It is really like most of the league, Thank God Louisville, I guess, held it down a little bit for the league. But even that, I think they finished with 3 or 4 losses. So Yeah, it's just tough because so much of the league is just so trash. And I'm not, that's a lot of Florida State and Clemson's complaint is we are propping up a bad league. And Florida State didn't come out and do very well defending that, accusation by being crap themselves. But I do think you look at the Holy War late in the year last year. Utah was out of everything. You look at the way that so many teams had a chance down the stretch in the Big 12, whether it's Iowa State or Arizona State or Colorado or BYU. There was a scenario where Baylor could have gotten in the Big 12 championship. And then you look at what Texas Tech is doing and all the excitement around that. And, I'm just rattling off teams here at this point. Even some of the bad teams. There's some intrigue around UCF to see what Frost does. There's some intrigue around West Virginia to see what happens with Rich Rod coming back. And, is Oklahoma State going to turn it around? They've always been a team that people wanted to watch. Remember that Oklahoma State Arkansas game early in the year? Everybody was watching that, and that was a phenomenal game. And so, I just top to bottom. If there's a ranked ACC matchup, which doesn't happen a ton. Yeah, if Clemson Miami's on or Clemson Florida State or Florida State Miami, that's going to win in the ratings. Outside of the massive matchups, I'm not tuning in for Wake Forest versus Duke.
No.
I'm not tuning in for Georgia Tech versus Pitt. Yeah, I'm just not. And so that's where I think the ACC falls behind. Do they have the star power? Absolutely. They absolutely do. And anybody who wants to deny the top heaviness of the league is crazy to me. But I'm not watching ACC football. I watch it because I watch everything and standing implications, things like that. But if there's a good Big 12 game on and a middle of the road Big 12 game versus a middle of the road ACC game, I don't think the ACC is very exciting outside of just a couple of teams. We've talked about the Holy War some and talk about how it is an all-year thing. Listen, I don't want to use the words crash out, but I'm going to use the words crash out. Utah fans not handling the Rider Lions news well at all. I understand being salty when you lose a game, but are you salty when your big rivals get a good commit? I guess I've done that when Florida and Miami have gotten a good commit, but this has not been a good week for Utah.
No, here's where I kind of get it is because I remember, growing up an Arkansas Razorback fan, the second that LSU landed a big commit, which happens a lot, I was just upset. It's like, oh, we should have gotten him. Arkansas wasn't even in the running. And now, as an analyst covering the Big 12, I am looking at Utah fans and wondering are you guys okay? I don't want to keep dunking on Utah fans, but I got a text yesterday from Ivan, who is a massive Utah fan. And most people are like, oh, who's Ivan? Just bear with me for a second. He's a massive Utah fan who actually got me tickets to the Holy War last year. I was like, dude, let's go out. We'll have a lot of fun. And he texted me, he's like, do you just hate Utah? We're all mad. We're all upset. Do you hate them? Does everyone hate this? Everybody. And what I need Utah fans to understand is I think they're the most important fan base and arguably the most important school in the Big 12 because Iowa State doesn't hate UCF. Iowa State hates Utah. Why? Because Utah has become kind of the new UT. They become easy to hate. And you have to be good to a degree. You have to have some sort of rapport to a degree to be able to be hateable. Cincinnati's not hateable. Houston's not hateable. We can't because they haven't built that up in football yet in the Big 12. Utah's built it up over years of really solid gameplay. And because of that, they come in the Big 12 with their chest pumped out and high and mighty. And now other fans really dislike them. So in moments like this, it's really easy to further create a universal rivalry amongst Big 12 schools with Utah. And you're seeing a lot of their fans, I think crash out might be the right word, is Utah misses a bowl game in what was supposed to be their greatest roster. I could go and pull up the receipt of people saying it's the greatest Utah roster of all time. Kyle Whittingham will win the Big 12. I picked the Utes to go to the Big 12 championship this last season. I really believed Utah was going to be good. I was very wrong. Everyone else was very wrong in saying the exact same thing as me. And in post, they didn't react well. Their athletic director didn't react well. And now BYU landing A.J. DeBonce, the number one basketball player in the country and one of the top quarterbacks in the country, Rider Lions. They're not reacting well again. They're just watching BYU win. And another piece that really stinks for Utah fans about this is they're watching BYU win, and they're starting to understand BYU is going to keep winning. Now that the Cougars have committed to being really, really good at the whole football thing, the era of Utah and BYU going back and forth could be coming to a close because the Cougs have officially decided we want to dominate. We want to spend money. We want to do things differently. We're not going to go get the 2 stars and the 3 stars. We're going to get the 4 stars and the 5 stars and make this work at the national level. BYU has never been so good on the recruiting trail. They've never been so good at investing in college athletics or investing in football. Now that they kind of unlocked Pandora's box, and the entire Big 12 is cowering at this. And again, if you are a Texas Tech fan, you might not care that much. You're going, wow, cool, a great new opponent to play. But if that is your forever universal rival, Utah, there was one Utah message board warrior who was like, well, this just stinks for BYU because now the bar is raised so high and their expectations are massive. And they, if they don't meet it, it's going to lead to misery. You're like, are you kidding me? They landed a 5-star kid. Your reaction is, this is terrible long-term for the university because their fan base could be let down. And terrible long-term because the SEC will never invite BYU because BYU spends too much on recruiting. That was another take that I saw from Utah fans, or that Ryder Lions have been paid $20 million. Utah fans are so excited their recruiting budget is so low and they are landing, 3 or 4-star kids without having to pay $20 million. And it's a crash shop, but I get it. I think it's what's great about college football. Those are the little things that when we talk about the death of the game or the death of what we love about college football, that's what's still alive. Is hatred, is the love of the rivalry, and Utah fans are displaying that in full right now.
On Utah specifically, what is the problem? Like, maybe that should have been its own segment. How long you got tonight? Quickly though, like, what are your thoughts on how are they able to get, not just with their rivalry with BYU, but kind of with they've been a really good team for a long time. This is not like Utah was supposed to have one special year like Texas Tech is supposed to have this year, and they didn't live up, and so no big deal. Utah's been really good for a long time.
Yeah. And
very competitive. Was last year a blip on the radar? Will they be, back to normal this year? And what, part 2 of that is, what does their NIL budget look like? What does their investment level look like to compete? If not at the highest level, then at least within the Big 12.
Yeah, you say, do I have all day? My DoorDash and Canes, it's here in 4 minutes. Otherwise, I would go on for 20.
No slaw on that, right?
No slaw. Double toast, please. An extra cane sauce there, too. No free ads, but kind of pretty good chicken. This is, man, TJ, this is a loaded question, but it's one that I think comes down to an off year for Utah. I have not given up on Kyle Whittingham. I have not given up on the Utes. I have not given up on what that program is or its capabilities or its longevity. I do think that Kyle Whittingham and what he's done at that program has staying power, and it's not a Mike Gundy situation where they have to take $1 million away from the head coach and reset everything. Devin Dampier could come in and make them a 9-3 football team. Do I think they're 11-1? No. Do I think that they still have a lot of really good talent? Yes. They have a core there, or at least pieces there that helped them go to a Pac-12 championship, win a Pac-12 championship just a couple of seasons ago. Kids on the roster that remember what it's like to win at the highest level. And they were very, very good their final year in the Pac-12. And if they had consistent quarterback play, could have been elite that season as well. So I don't think Utah is in a press the red button, blow it all up mode yet. But then again, we're 1 year away from finding out, oh, shoot, they just can't swim in the Big 12, where they came in overconfident. They thought they could cakewalk everybody, and they couldn't. And now they're going to have to move on from Whittingham, or he retires, or find a new way to compete in this conference. And I hope we don't get there. I don't think we'll get there, but it's always possible.
Second part of that was just the investment level in your mind. I don't know if you have any thoughts or if you've heard anything on that. Just, are they, where do they stack up maybe in the Big 12 is the best way to ask that.
Yeah. NIL wise, they need help. They need some help. I mean, BYU's got the big donors. BYU has the big boppers when it comes to money, and I don't know if Utah's got that same level of investment yet. And a piece of that is the fact that they weren't good last year. And I make this case often. If I'm a donor and gave $2 million to football and then watch football go 5-7, I don't know if I want to give $2 million again. Yeah. I'm probably going to spend that $2 million on a new beach house in Malibu, as opposed to, which wouldn't be a very big beach house in Malibu, as opposed to giving it to football.
Yeah. Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work for more of this nonsense that you and I talk about weekly?
At Locked On Big, at LO Big 12 on Twitter, I should say, and Locked On Big 12, wherever you find your podcasts, and on YouTube at Drake C. Toll on that Bird app as well.
If you have any Utah hate, please direct that Drake's way.
Stop! No, please.
I love you. I'm all. Like, I got a red marker right here. I'm all for the Utes. So
yep. There you go.
Drake, thanks for hanging out.
Always fun, TJ. Thanks, boss.